All right. Good evening. I'm Adam, and with Woods, Chris, and Charles, we are Touching Grass, the podcast about being normal in a world where that's a virtue. Tonight, we are going to be talking about healthcare, and pedophiles. Based on what's in the news lately, Congress has passed a bill which substantially defunds Medicaid in important part. And if you haven't been hiding under a rock somewhere, there's been some kerfuffle about Jeffrey Epstein and the fallout of his prosecution. So for segment one, Chris, take us away.
Listen to Adam producing. Like, we're in the A block now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if for anyone who hasn't paid attention, I guess I'm not used to this. I'm used to I'm not used to just diving right into it. Jesus Christ, you can give me any time.
Get used to it.
So for anybody who's not really paid attention over the last, month or so, the Republicans in Congress passed what is quite possibly the worst budget bill that I've ever seen in my life. So, there's this old saying for folks like us who've been around politics for an embarrassing amount of time that is, show me your budget and I'll show you your priorities. The only people who benefit from this budget are people not your boss, not your boss's boss, not your boss's boss's boss, but the guy who owns the hedge fund that owns parts of your company is really the only person who benefits from this ridiculous budget. And there are a lot of losers in this bill. Don't get me wrong. There's SNAP benefits are a big loser in this. They took a giant cut. And quite possibly, I think one of the biggest losers in this that we do not talk nearly enough about is that they have created now a system where the only people who can get terminal degrees, especially expensive terminal degrees like legal or like law degrees, and become and MDs or DOs or nurse NP degrees, anything like that, are folks who come from a wealthy family because they've now capped the amount that you can borrow as a graduate student, and it is well below the point where you are going to get any of those. So
my understanding was that they exempted law and medicine from those caps. Is that not the case?
Not that I'm aware of, because both of those professions are up in arms.
Well, I've heard this is a part of the bill that is relatively new to me. I have not done a deep dive on this, so that I'm very interested to hear about this because of the cuts in Medicare and Medicaid. I know that there are already people will be like, where rural hospitals are going to close, and some hospitals have already closed, and so doctors, just to pick one profession, doctors are like, there's a big worry right now with people that are at medical schools that are like, how are we going to recruit people? Because if the only way you can become a doctor is if your family is already wealthy, like, that's going to really skew those professions towards, like you said, the upper earners, but also where are they going to work? How are you going to pay? For the ones that let's say that I took out a loan to go to med school. Where am I going to work if we're cutting? If hospitals are closing.
So based on my current Googling,
it's good to do that while we're on the recording too.
They're not exempt from caps, but law and medicine have a different cap. The caps for those is higher than other graduate degrees, and what's right in front of me right now is the cap for medicine, which is 200,000.
Okay, so about half of what you need to go to medical school.
I was going to say that's chunk change.
Yeah. I have one of my best friends is a radiologist who has $400K in student loan debt, and that was 20 years ago.
Jesus.
Now, I went to law school. I didn't take out that much. Some lawyers did, and I think that they made an unwise choice doing that. But I can't speak to.
Yeah, and I think it depends on your personal circumstances too, because some folks have to take out more than they need for the actual cost of tuition.
Right. Cost of living and shit.
Because I know for certain some of the places that I looked at doing my MBA, you weren't allowed to work while you were doing your MBA. You weren't allowed to have a full-time job. How do you you have no choice. You have no choice but to take out more in order to support yourself. To be honest,
I have a great example of that. Like at when I was in grad school, we have a similar clause that we're not allowed to work. Like the thing that a lot of people don't know or don't realize is like when you go for an advanced degree in the hard sciences, chemistry, math, and physics, engineering, things like that, generally grad schools pay you. So you have a stipend. So they waive your tuition and they pay you. Now, yeah, you make poverty wages as a graduate student, but you're not taking out student loans. And one of the guys I was in grad school with, he ended up teaching at a school across town, like on the side. And the only reason anybody found out about it was because they were like, "Hey, you've got to teach this class this time." He's like, "Yeah, I'm busy." Then they're like, "We don't give a shit." And he's like, "Hey, I'm teaching over here." And they're like, "Well, you're not allowed to do that." You know, it was a big thing. And he was like, "Well, then, you know, fuck you, pay me more."
Yeah,
you know, kind of thing. So
yeah,
I totally feel you.
But yeah, that's so, you know, I don't, you know, again, but I mean, $200K for a medical degree is not, it's you, I don't know where they got that figure from. Like I said,
I'm going to offer a little bit of a counterpoint here as somebody who majored in philosophy in college. Student loans for a PhD in philosophy are just a really terrible investment for the government, and we should not be subsidizing as many graduate philosophy programs as we are currently subsidizing.
So I think the counterpoint to that, though, is that your graduate philosophy degree subsidizes, you know, Adam's law degree, my MBA, because they cost substantially more in terms of faculty and overall cost, but you still pay the same amount that I paid.
I don't know
graduates.
I'm undergrad for philosophy only, but
just in general,
I don't think that's a great argument, actually.
No, I strongly disagree with
the people who get the PhDs in philosophy, if you look at their likely career earnings, they are not the people who should be subsidizing MBA programs.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is the profit margin in a university offering any program in philosophy or any of the liberal arts is substantially higher than the profit margin they get offering, you know, business degrees and other literal degrees.
I still strongly disagree with that. I don't think that
I don't agree with it either. It's just the reality.
I don't think that somebody who gets duped into going to a PhD program in philosophy at a overpriced private college should be a sacrificial lamb to pay for their law program.
Yeah.
But I mean, that aside, most law schools have a separate budget independent from the undergraduate school. They're not financially interchangeable.
No, again, what I'm talking about though is that even if you just take out what level of the program it is, the profit margin in any of those, in anything like a philosophy degree, a sociology degree, any of the non-literal programs it's exponentially higher. There was actually, I forget what podcast it was. There was a really interesting segment that they did about this, about how programs like that subsidize programs like MBA programs or just business programs in general, or, you know, like the STEM programs. They're all subsidized by the philosophical programs. Just because they're
and I think that's a losing trade for
right, everyone. and that's not a failure of people who want to pursue those things. You should absolutely be free to pursue those things. That's a failure of your university being greedy fucks. That's what that is.
Greedy fucks with government subsidies, which there are now fewer of.
And if we want, excuse me, if we want to discuss who is paying for who. One of the things that this is kind of aside from the bill, the big beautiful bill, or whatever the fuck they want to call it, Donald Trump wanting to ban or outright kick out foreign students that come to do graduate work here in the United States. They pay full price for everything.
Sure, exactly.
And so you know,
you've got financial aid.
Exactly. So you've got Chinese students that come to the University of Kentucky, where I went, and want to get a PhD in physics. They're paying all it. They're paying the full ride, you know, and now undergraduates.
I don't have a problem with. I'm an American nationalist, and I'm fine with us bilking foreign students for all that they're willing to pay.
Yeah, but I don't really have a problem with it either.
No, I'm not saying. I mean, the graduate students that come to do this, and the undergraduates and graduates. I think I misspoke. In grad school, they're still waived and they pay a stipend. They're paid a stipend, but undergraduates are paying the full ride. They know the deal, but with Donald Trump wanting to like basically excommunicate them from higher education, like that money has to come from somewhere, and it's going to be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know we got off on this education tangent because I just like to draw attention to the fact that we're really going to hurt ourselves by kneecapping people who are, you know, who would otherwise probably be great lawyers or doctors or MBAs or any of those new caps. But the second biggest group that loses out in this entire thing is the United States healthcare system.
Yeah.
If you weren't paying attention, they stripped nearly $1 trillion out of Medicaid. So Medicaid, excuse me. And through the course of that, I think that it's really understated the consequences of taking money out of Medicaid is going to have. So first off, one of the biggest things that I hear time and time again when people are like, oh, well, I don't have Medicaid, I don't care. Okay, well, you might not have Medicaid, but children in your community are on Medicaid. Seniors in your community are on Medicaid. So aside from the fact that you should give a shit that your neighbor can go to the doctor
as a human,
just as a decent human being, because it's not a pie. Like your neighbor getting a piece of a pie does not mean you have less pie. Like your neighbor getting healthcare does not mean there's less healthcare for you.
Yeah.
But aside from that.
Well, can I make one point, Chris?
Yeah.
A lot of people are on Medicare and don't know that they're on Medicare because from state to state it's called different things.
Correct.
Like
okay,
you might be on Kentucky Connect, I think is what they call it. But you're like, and that's funded by Medicare. And those people are like, oh, fuck these other humans. I'm not on that program because they called it something different for me.
Yeah, just
it's you're talking about. I mean, principally that applies to Medicaid. It's probably also the case with Medicare.
Yeah.
But any state-administered program, a lot of states have their own name for it, and a lot of people don't realize they're on Medicaid or Medicare or what have you, because they think they're on a state version of that that's not affected by a federal defunding mechanism, but it is.
Right.
Proceed.
Right, 100%. So like in Ohio, for example, in Ohio where I live, our lovely Republican legislature wrote into our budget that if Medicaid's reimbursement dollars, if the matching dollars they get from the federal government is reduced by $1, the entirety of the Medicaid expansion ends. So folks who are eligible to stay on their parents' insurance until they're 26, a large part of that subsidy that your insurance provider gets comes from Medicaid. So you don't even actually have to be on Medicaid to benefit from it. But again, that's not even here or there. So before we delve that far into the weeds of how unnecessarily complicated our insurance system is, I want to really talk for a second about the folks who say, well, I'm not on Medicaid, it doesn't matter to me. Well, it does, because when folks lose their Medicaid and they lose their health care in general, they stop getting preventative care. They only go to the doctor when they can absolutely no longer not go to the doctor. So like, think of it being like incredibly, incredibly sick, all of that shit. And what that does is the basic concept of supply and demand. There's less demand for healthcare. The cost of it goes way the fuck up. So if you're on private health insurance, if you're on your employer's health insurance, or you're a self-pay through the Affordable Care Act marketplace, which by the way is going up, 76% this year as a result of this. Regardless of how you're getting that private insurance, if you're on your parents' insurance, your premiums are going to shoot through the roof because the healthcare industry's costs are going to shoot through the roof, and they got to make it up somewhere. Which is also the big thing. Everybody's like, oh, well, rural hospitals are going to get beat. Rural hospitals are going to get beat up. The reason being is, a lot of folks in rural America are on Medicaid. A lot of folks are on Medicaid in rural America. And those who aren't are paying an incredibly low margin for their health care right now. Their rural hospitals are probably making 2-3% profit on the services they provide if they're not providing them at cost, and they're subsidizing that off of Medicaid. So what that's doing is it's causing, what is it, forget the total number of hospitals, but I know here in Ohio we've got 11 rural hospitals alone that are likely going to close because they're not going to be able to sustain operations anymore. So, excuse me. So that is quite possibly the worst part about these excuse me. We're gonna have to edit that down. I lost my train of thought right there.
No, that's fine. You're good.
But quite possibly the worst part about the Medicaid cuts in general, or what they're going to do to rural healthcare, because when you start talking about these hospitals closing, you're talking about the only place in some situations within hours to get emergency or trauma care. So like we have a hospital about maybe an hour and a half from where I live, that is considered a rural hospital, that is actually on the list of hospitals that will probably close as a result of this budget cut, or of these budget cuts, I should say. And as a result of those budget cuts, when that hospital closes, their nearest trauma center is either going to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or an hour and a half the other direction where I live. So think of it in terms of like level 1 trauma centers are where you go if you've got head injuries or neck injuries or spine injuries, anything like that. So your kid falls down the stairs in the middle of the night because he didn't see what was going on. The EMTs rush him to a trauma center. There ain't no trauma center anymore. They're rushing him an hour and a half the other direction. So you can see the implications that's going to have. So,
Chris, to put a very fine put a number here. I'm looking at the Healthcare Quality and Payment Forum, Center for Healthcare Quality and Payment Forum, and they estimate that more than 700 rural hospitals are at risk of closing, and 300 are imminently going to close because of these cuts.
Yeah. One of the biggest lifelines to rural healthcare, which has been in trouble for a long time. This isn't a new problem, but one of the biggest lifelines was, believe it or not, the Affordable Care Act. Since I think I saw a statistic not long ago that since like the early 2000s, something like 200 rural hospitals have closed. Nearly all of them were in states that didn't expand their Medicaid program through the Affordable Care Act. Yeah. So anyways, I
can put up a nifty map of like which states have, are going to close.
Yeah, let's look at it, because I bet you they're all states that Donald Trump won.
Yeah, it's there you go. So yeah, if you look at this map, it's color coded in the percent of rural hospitals per state. And so if you look at it's a little bit. I mean, the pink and the purple, which are between 20 and 40 and more than 40%. Mostly pink, but if you compare the states that Donald Trump won, yeah, they're pink and purple. Like if you look at Texas has 87 rural hospitals that could close.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly, and I can't even say it's an unintended consequence. I just, they wanted to be able to say, oh, we cut out of the budget, but they didn't want to cut it from places. They didn't want to cut it from places that were going to make their massive donors happy, or that were going to make their massive donors upset, I should say. So they took it out on the poor and the elderly, which is truly, truly terrifying. So, like I said, I know the overall concept of what we were talking about here was this bill's impacts on the healthcare system. And I think that obviously that's why I think it's important to look at it in a macro lens there, that they're making it harder for you to get stuff that keeps you healthy, whether it's preventative care, whether it's SNAP so that you can get nutritious food, so they're making it harder to stay healthy, they're making it harder to get healthy when you get sick, and then they're making it even more expensive to do all of those things when you have no choice but to pay for them. Oh, and then by the way, if you wanted to be able to contribute to that and make a difference in it and be a doctor, sorry, we made that harder too. It's one of those situations where you have to look at it from a larger scale to realize how bad it's going to be on the healthcare industry. But I mean, to put into perspective, some of the so look at like massive hospital systems, right? If you look at like massive hospital systems of like, let's say 1,000 points of care or more, right? That's usually the litmus test for what's considered a large healthcare system. You're maybe talking like the revenue range of like $10-12 billion, somewhere around there. If you pooled their publicly available records, because they're all nonprofits, at the end of the day, they might have a surplus of like 100 million or so, to give you an idea how low the margins in healthcare already are. And now you're taking $1 trillion out of the industry. Just doesn't seem smart.
No, not being smart, I think it really undersells it. Like, we did this, like, well, let me say we. The Republican Party voted this themselves. Like, we are doing this to ourselves. This is not some like outside attack against America. One of the two major parties of the United States passed this for no other reason than they had to pass something or Donald Trump would get mad. Like, we did this to ourselves because of one of the stupidest Americans that we elected president would be mad if we didn't. And a good example of that is that Josh Hawley, who squawked nonstop that he would not vote for this if it had any Medicaid cuts in it, has introduced legislation to stop the cuts that he voted for. What the fuck are we doing? This is just silly.
Yeah. This gives me Lisa Murkowski vibes from when she was like, well, yeah, I voted for it. I know it's a piece of shit bill. Hopefully the House fixes it and sends it back.
Yeah.
No, you voted. You voted
and
to send
she
it there.
knew. Yeah, she knew that there was no time and no way that the House could fix her fuck up before it was passed in law.
Never mind that by the time that she even said that, the House was already or the Senate was already in recess, and half of her colleagues were already on planes home.
They noped out.
Fucking stupid. It's and then we wonder why other countries lead us in things. Like here in Ohio, for example, basically the only thing in Ohio that we lead in is an infant mortality. And we went and just cut Medicaid that children, children who are born into impoverished families get covered with, but then also Medicaid provides things like prenatal care. So let's not address the problem. Let's just make it fucking harder to get healthcare you already weren't getting.
Yeah, it takes since you just said that, it takes everything in my being not to queue up the newsroom rant where he talks about the things that we do lead in. The three things America is number one in: defense spending, people that think angels are real, and what was the third one? Oopsie. Oh, incarcerated people per capita.
Just stupid.
Yeah.
Like you said, just self-inflicted wounds. Nobody was asking for Medicaid cuts. I don't know anybody who said, hey, who campaigned on, I'm going to cut $1 trillion out of Medicaid because fuck them people.
I mean, maybe Thomas Massey.
Well, yeah, maybe Thomas Massey, I guess.
You're missing, in your discussion, you're really missing the bigger picture for the really shitty picture. What happens when all of these rural hospitals close? They're the largest employers and sources of revenue.
Yeah, those knock-on effects.
Communities that they serve by, I believe the expression is a country fucking mile.
Yeah.
So,
and they're not low-paying jobs either.
No, they aren't.
Yeah.
So, when these close, when the professionals relocate, when the revenue and spending gets pulled, a lot of these communities are just going to go from kind of hanging on to maybe they're lucky and get to rebrand as a vacation destination.
And you know what the ironic part is? Where those doctors and those nurse practitioners and the just frontline healthcare staff are going to go? They're going to go to blue states that invest in healthcare.
Mm-hmm. And the concern, and when the young people get out of high school or finish their like myself, I went to school. I was born and raised in the town I went to college at. Marshall was just down the road. Like when that situation happens and there's no jobs in the area because the local healthcare system has collapsed, and the knock-on effect of that, the conservative parents that voted for Donald Trump are going to ask pleadingly why none of their kids stay in the state or stay in their town.
Yeah.
while they all have to move away.
It's a massive problem where I live. Is our own Department of Development has said that by 2050 we're going to lose another 1 million residents in the state of Ohio. Keep in mind that in that time, we have passed some of the most anti-freedom legislation as it relates to colleges. So folks are going to move out even earlier. We have created an atmosphere where people don't want to live here. Nobody's moving here. I use Intel as an example. Intel was building a facility in Central Ohio that was going to build chips until all of the uncertainty happened around the Chips Act. The average salary there was north of 6 figures, which in Ohio is a great salary. And they couldn't get people who wanted to move here. Because it turns out people want to live where they don't have to worry about if their freedom is constantly going to be under attack. Yeah. Christ, for Christ's sake, my state has become a Gen Z slang term for awful. I don't know when some of these folks are going to wake up and, if you want your kids and your grandkids around, you've got to create a state that they can fucking live in.
I had to explain that that kind of situation, the mindset of somebody asked me once, why does West Virginia have so much problem with poverty and low paid wages and things? And I explained to them that because of the way the coal industry was set up in West Virginia, people were born and raised to believe that if they had to move, 15 miles away from the point that they were born, that was just horseshit, they should be able to get a job at the coal mine just in the next holler over. And the world has changed from that. The world has changed from that situation, and a lot of people just, just refuse to do it. So I try to explain that to somebody from Illinois, and they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" They're like, "If shit's not right here, I'll move."
And that's reflected in West Virginia has, in a way that is abnormal to most other states that I've been in or even driven through. Most other states have a much greater distance between towns. You have a lot more, there's a town here, and then you drive through nothing, and then there's another town a half hour away. Yeah. That's not the case in West Virginia. There are tiny towns every 5 minutes everywhere in the coal fields, because back when the timber industry and the coal industry were a big deal, there were towns that you could have a job in, chopping trees, digging coal, that frequently apart.
Yeah, they just sprung up around work sites, basically.
Right. And you look at the names of towns in West Virginia are basically just, at least in the coal fields, are just random words. Like cucumber or mohawk or panther. It's just words that the coal industry came up with for what this work camp is called, and then it eventually became a town. Mm-hmm. And we're in an era now where people have cars, and the coal industry and the timber industry are not serving the role that they once did. But people still have the expectation that when they grew up in these little towns that used to be coal camps, that they should be able to have a job where they were raised. And that expectation has been frequently disappointed since about the 1970s.
Mm. Yeah. Try to explain that to somebody who was born and raised in a suburb of Chicago. They just don't get it, and I don't think they have to. It's just just the difference between growing up in Appalachia and growing up in the Midwest.
Yeah. Anyways. So now that we've thoroughly depressed everybody.
Yeah, this all sucks.
Yeah. So anyways, the TLDR on that whole thing is more expensive healthcare, no matter whether you're on Medicaid or not, less access to healthcare, whether you live in rural America or not. Everybody loses. So
I have to look up that acronym every time I see it. I just can't imprint that on my brain.
What, TLDR?
Yeah, I know that phrase. Too long didn't read because but I can't get it.
I use the shit out of it, especially a lot of the stuff that I have to write on a pretty regular basis is lengthy and very policy wonky. So I have a habit of like TLDR. If you don't read anything else, read this.
Yeah, well, this is the thing we want to take away with. All right. Do we want to move into the next depressing topic, or do we want to talk about like something light? Did everybody see Superman?
I did not see it. It's on my list of stuff to see, but my kids have been super into some of the older Disney movies, and I use older very loosely, but like we did movie night tonight, and we watched Moana, for example. It's like not super old, but like
Nice.
Old enough that like a 37-year-old like myself knows all the words to how far I'll go. So I haven't gotten there. I heard it's great though. I heard it's great.
No, it's super fun. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's I have an aversion to sitting through previews nowadays. So I will literally time it so I can walk from the bar in the mall to the movie theater and walk in just as the movie starts. I will say it's one of those movies like, and depending on which theater franchise you're at, you can set your watch to. It's between 23 and 27 minutes of previews and commercials and all that shit.
But then how do you know what's coming out?
That.
Yeah. What's that?
How do you know what's coming out though? I actually like the previews.
Oh well, I'm like, I mean, you sent us a preview in our group chat, and I watched it. Like that's how I get previews. Like,
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
That's actually how I knew that Mortal Kombat was coming out.
Right. So, but I will say that Superman is super fun. It's super fun. It's light. It's bright. It's colorful. But I will say that I walked in and sat down at my seat, and like it was already going. It's one of those movies that just like starts and gives you a cold open. I didn't know that, so I was like, "Man, did I fuck this up? Did I miss time this one, or did I miss parts of the movie?" And after a couple minutes, they do the big Superman. Like I was like, "Oh no, I nailed it. This is cool." Yeah.
I do not love superhero movies. So
What's that?
I said I do not love superhero movies, so I have not seen it.
Really? You don't like any of the like DC Marvel franchise movies at all?
I liked the original Iron Man, and then I very quickly got tired of the concept.
Yeah, I feel like they might have drug that one out a while. It felt like I think not even just that franchise, but it feels like the longer they try and draw out a series, trying to suck every dollar out of it, the worse it ends up being.
All I'm gonna say is I just can't believe Superman went woke. It's a movie about an illegal alien whose adoptive parents commit Social Security fraud. I just can't believe, in order to create his identity for him, I can't believe this franchise went woke, guys.
Yeah.
He goes around the world helping people who are less strong than he is stand up against people who are like nominally much more powerful. I can't believe. I'm just completely fucking shocked that a franchise with these conservative values has gone woke. I don't even know what the allegation is.
That's why somebody said that to me. They were like, "I can't believe the new Superman movie got involved in politics." I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Well, we have gotten to a point, like there is a certain victory that you can achieve in your movement where people cease to view that as a political statement. And I think that like old school liberalism has gotten to that point that nobody thinks that the old civil rights movement is politically affiliated anymore. Nobody thinks that the New Deal is politically involved anymore because it achieved a complete victory where nobody thinks it's controversial anymore.
Are you saying that like they don't think it's political and that like there was a group of people for it or a party for it and a party against it and therefore it was
right? And nobody will admit that their faction was ever against the civil rights movement or the New Deal. Like everybody thinks that's good.
It's not.
I mean, all you got to do is go back in history and look at do they not know that their votes on these issues were public record and still are?
Well, yeah, but there's also like if we, the whitewashing is a bad term. I'm sorry, but like the memory wipe of things like the civil Adam's saying, the civil rights issue, and then like the the kind of great reset of the Democrats becoming, Dixiecrats becoming Republicans and Republicans becoming Democrats, that kind of shift, that didn't happen. Like, was it Strom Thurmond was the only one that officially changed parties? But
well, no,
all the Dixiecrats in the South were like, well, fuck this shit. We're Republicans now.
Well, it's not just that. You have to remember, politics is all of the things that I don't like. Common sense is all of the things that I do like. So
that's a really good point.
If Superman had just been all of the things that I do like, then it would be a common sense movie about an alien who comes to this country without going through immigration and customs enforcement or the INS or anything like that. And that's just common sense because he's an alien. He's not going to go through immigration. And then his, adoptive parents, of course, commit fraud on the Social Security Administration. But that's also just common sense because, there's no process there. But see, it's politics if you point out any of those things, because I don't like it when people point those things out to me in my escapist fantasy.
So, do we have canon confirmation that Superman has a Social Security number?
Yes, because he has a job.
That's true. Clark Kent has Social Security.
He might be paid under the table, though.
Not at the Daily Planet.
Oh, okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Well, I was going to say that, I can think of 13 or 14 people that are Facebook friends with me that would find what Charles just said, Joe Rogan levels of just genius. Jordan Peterson levels of brilliant right there. They would just be like, oh, shit, I'm in. That's a political party we need to start right now.
Jordan Peterson levels of brilliance. Don't insult Charles like that.
I mean, I will say that if there was any shred of truth to the fact that folks who are undocumented don't get legitimate paychecks and don't pay taxes, they wouldn't have worked so hard to get their IRS data. Let's be honest here.
Okay.
So it's entirely possible that Superman does his job is completely above board, and he's just using like a TIN number.
Well, this pissed me off. I googled this because I wanted to pull some kind of comic canon out of to answer Adam's question, and of course the Google's AI is the stupidest shit ever. It says no, Superman does not have a Social Security number because he's a fictional character. No shit.
Well, wait, hold on though. Is Google stupid, or were you stupid for googling that?
I think that's a good question. That's a chicken and the egg question right there. Yeah.
Woods, what you need to do is ask Gemini to hallucinate Superman's Social Security. If Superman were to have a Social Security number, what would it be?
And then all of a sudden you're gonna have the FBI beating down your door for identity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and now it's telling me that it doesn't understand what canon is. I guess I should put that in because now it's asking me no, Clark Kent doesn't have a Social Security number because he's a fictional character. No shit, I hate this. I'm dumb for asking.
So anyway, AI isn't coming for my job anytime soon.
No. It's like I already job anytime soon. Yeah. But if you haven't seen it, it's fun. I actually was just a quick aside before we get into some other news. I was listening to some podcast hosts to kind of have a personal conversation. Their discussion of Superman and whether or not it was woke kind of devolved into a, hey, will you take your kids to this because they have young children? And it totally showed a blind side that I have, and that's as somebody who doesn't have children, I know that as an adult that drinks I think Adam, what do you call it? Irish sober, drink all the time and not necessarily really drunk. I don't fathom what other people's kids should see or hear. And the podcast host discussed they took their they were discussing whether or not they could take their kids to Superman because of the language and not the violence. They were kind of sussing between language and violence and sex and whether they let their kids go. And one host was like, well, my first kid would have never gone to see that, but now my fourth kid, he sees PG-13 shit all the time. I don't care. But they talked about how in one of the trailers, that the one host was like, yeah, I don't take my kid. I take my kid right when it starts because he was super scared. But I think he said one of the Matrix trailers or something in it scared him. And I totally would never have thought of that having a young kid at a movie and having to worry about the trailers scaring your kid. Like I didn't, you know, and because I thought that like if you're at a PG-13 movie or like you know PG, like the trailer should be in that genre too. But I guess I could be wrong.
Oh no, yeah, they're all over the place. So I
Yeah,
will say, like my when we don't take our son to the movies yet. He's not quite old enough yet. But our daughter really enjoys the movies, and like the stuff she got. Like the most recent thing we saw was Lilo and Stitch, and everything was pretty age appropriate in the trailers then. But like I could see in Superman, knowing how big of a release that was going to be, everybody and their third cousins fighting for space to get in there.
yeah.
So
Like like an example of how tone deaf my like me and my brother were about this. Like we were at we were at the beach with our family, my mom's side and my aunt's side of the family. So it's like 19 people or something like that. And my brother threw on something on Facebook or not Facebook shit, Netflix. And it was something on par with like an Alien vs. Predator movie, something like that. I forget which moment it was. And we're just sitting there watching, having a cocktail, like talking. And then my cousin comes in and she's like, "Hey, should so-and-so be in here?" And we turn around. We had no clue that there was like an 8-year-old in the room, like just right over our heads. Like we're not good uncles. That kid was digging the movie. To be clear, he was digging the movie.
Yeah, you know what you were doing as an uncle, that's politics. Not having the kid in the room, that would be common sense.
Nice. God damn it.
I will also so kids also I found get scared by some random shit, right? Like yesterday, my 4-year-old watched the entirety of Jurassic Park because we went to a zoo that had a dino trail and he wanted to watch a dinosaur movie, and that was the one that he picked. And like, there are parts of that movie that I'm like, oh God. And he's just like, yeah. So either way, maybe did some irreparable harm there too. But you know, you would think that if you were gonna get creeped out by something, it would have been that.
Yeah, I've been told by parents that their children are more affected by the suspense building part. You know, where you build suspense because you know, like as an adult, I know I'm looking for the jump scare or you know whatever it is.
Yeah.
But as a child, you don't know that's coming. You just know that you're anxious and blank. You know, like you don't understand the thing. Like an example I could give that would scare well actually scared me, like that first Sinister movie. There's a scene where like he's doing something and he's got the demon on the screen and he looks away to do something else, and like I know that the demon's going to turn and look at him in the screen. Like that's the jump scare. Like the image is going to rotate and the demon's going, and I was like, don't do it, don't. And then I did it. I was like, God damn it. And I was in my late 20s. And I was like, that bothered me. But I can totally see how that kind of suspense building would affect a child that doesn't know the payout is
for sure
harmless.
For sure.
All right.
I mean, while we're on the topic of illegal immigration, do we want to talk about the gigantic additional funds that ICE got out of the big bill?
Yeah. What I need the three of you to do, and it's probably going to be Chris and Adam because Charles is probably going to make me more depressed about this, is talk me down from the fact that we are funding a massive police state that we're going to have problem dismantling for decades.
No, I think Charles and I are probably on the same wavelength on this one. There ain't nothing happy there at all.
Yeah. So one of the things that has been mentioned in the Republicans' big beautiful bill that has kind of gone, I don't want to say it's gone under the radar because we've been talking about it, but I don't think people understand how much of a change this is going to make in just every day-to-day American life moving forward. Because in the past, was in the past week, we had ICE raid a pot farm, if I'm not mistaken. And
didn't they kill somebody at that one too?
They tear gassed what turned out to be migrant workers and children. And the right-wing media has made a big stand. Like Alex Jones will not shut the fuck up about the fact that they found, I think it was 14, maybe it was 10 underage workers, some of them as young as 14. Now, yeah, that's not good. I also didn't see them arrest the boss who was, employing underage children. Right. But Arkansas is actively working to make, humans as young as 13 able to work 24-hour shifts at meatpacking plants. So please calm the fuck down with your outrage.
Hey, we got that in Ohio too. That's their answer to our labor shortage is to let miners work longer shifts.
Fan-fucking-tastic. This is why I drink.
I've got a counterpoint for you, Woods.
What's that?
It's a cause for optimism.
Wait. Are we sure? Blink twice if you're being held hostage.
Yeah,
because I for sure thought we were on the same wavelength on this one.
No. I have a cause for optimism, and that is that when Barack Obama was president, we set the precedent that the president of the United States could, on the authority of a legal memo authored by his Justice Department, drone strike American citizens. Now, the guy who he drone striked definitely deserved to be blown up, but we did set that precedent, and to date, Donald Trump has not thought to use it yet. So
no, don't. Let's cut that one out because he'll get an idea about it.
Okay, and now let's be clear that drone striking a U.S. citizen and drone striking a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil are very different things.
Well, I know this is true. I know this is very much aside from the police state we're building in the United States, but it all goes back to due process. And one of the things that I was certainly pissed off when Obama drone struck a U.S. citizen without due process because he was deemed a terrorist by the state. And if the state can
look, Anwar al-Awlaki was a terrorist. All right,
it's
not that he was deemed a terrorist by the state. He was a terrorist,
but he was then systematically executed without due process. And if that's a precedent that we want to start, that's not a good precedent because
if you are inarguably did we have to have a fucking court hearing every time a Union soldier shot a Confederate? No, we fucking didn't.
Well, they renounced their citizenship and also
and that was a war.
Arms, and by virtue of the fact that they were on the battlefield.
I think it was pretty easy to see a circumstance in which Anwar al-Awlaki renounced his U.S. citizenship. He was waging war against the United fucking States.
Well, and the American right wanted to point that out as a hypocrisy of the left, but they also are not aware. Like they didn't fathom that a government could be like, you're a terrorist, boom. Like they don't think that far ahead.
All I'm gonna say is that I had a problem with it when Obama did it then because I thought it was a precedent that was absolutely going to be abused, and
here we are.
Here we are, and we're not doing drone strikes. Thankfully, we're just like disappearing people off to a Salvadoran gulag.
I had a problem with it when I was a dumb fucking 19-year-old, but I renounced that position today.
Well, here, okay. What I want to talk about here and what really concerns
me. Wait, real quick before we move off of drones too fast. If anybody wants some humor in their day, our genius DOD secretary Pete Hegseth, he made this like super cinematic video about how we were ramping up drone production and all this shit. And he used a Metallica song, I think it was Enter Sandman, without their permission, without realizing that every member of Metallica wouldn't piss on him if he were on fire. I swear to God, they must have had the cease and desist letter waiting because it was like a matter of hours before the DOD had to completely take the whole video down.
There is a general principle in the legal world that when you have a new kind of lawsuit or a plaintiff who brings prominence to a new kind of lawsuit, that cause of action gets named for them going forward. And I really think that the lawsuit against a Republican politician for using a song without permission needs to be called a Springsteen suit from now going forward.
I'm fine with it.
Poor Heggie. He was probably so excited about that video that he was shaking.
Oh yeah.
He probably
that's an undercurrent. The fucking knobs that run our government right now are so just cringe and like TikTok-y, everything's got to be a vibe to them, and they're like fired off, and they're like, hell yeah, America, guns, and they don't, and there's a lawyer behind them, just like, God damn it, we're gonna get an email from Lars in 13 minutes.
So DHS posted made a Twitter post a couple of days ago that was they tweeted out this. Frankly, it's a beautiful painting. I don't have a problem with it, but it was a painting of this frontier family, and it said, and the text of the post was, "Don't forget your heritage," or the heritage of your homeland, or something like that. And I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, if you're a white American, you always have to think of yourself as an immigrant. This can't be your homeland. You're a perpetual visitor. Like, I think it's a ridiculous position to take. But on the other hand, the Department of Homeland Security does not need to be like edgy meme posting. That's beneath the dignity of the United States government.
Agreed.
So anyways, bring us back on topic here. So what happened?
Sir, I remember the Terror Watch traffic light for how scared we were supposed to be. There is nothing beneath the dignity of this government.
Well, and to backstop what Charles just said, there was a very fun jackass named Montgomery that sold, I'll find it here. There was a guy who sold the federal government code that would analyze Al Jazeera and find non-existent barcodes in Al Jazeera's broadcast that he would then just make up and give to the Department of Defense, and they would raise and lower that stoplight that Charles is talking about for no fucking reason. Like, flights were diverted because this guy was just fleecing the federal government. I think it's Travis Montgomery. But to bring us back to what I'm concerned about is people are already upset legitimately that we have ICE going through our cities and towns, stopping people for no reason and checking their papers, or just grabbing them and pulling them into a van. They're not showing identification. They're not showing their faces. They're covering their faces. The Trump, and just kind of as a point and an aside, like, the Trump administration says that they're searching for and going to capture the worst of the worst, the criminals, and everything like that. Well, they've run out of those fucking people. Now they're just grabbing whoever they think is too brown to be in America. And one of the things that I keep thinking about is, like, if we don't talk about Trinidad. I say this wrong. Trinidad Agua. Am I saying that correctly, or even
Yeah, I think it's Trinidad Agua.
Trinidad Agua. The whole thing was about getting them out of the country. But if we're just arresting, if we're pouncing on and arresting members of this super violent gang, I'm not hearing about any shootouts. Like, in my head, if what the Trump administration is saying is true, then we should have the Open Seeing to Predator 2 like every other week now. Because if a bunch of guys roll up on Trinidad Agua and and they're only taking the criminals like they say they are, then there should be some shootouts and something. Not that I'm saying that I want shootouts, but, like, you would think there would be some conflict, some conflagration.
Yeah. I do think it's important to point out that at the end of the day, I don't think any of us are going to make excuses for kicking out violent criminals, child traffickers, human traffickers in general. No, Godspeed, go with God, get them out. And if that's who you were actually going after, I wouldn't have a problem with the fact that you have a lot more money now. But Stephen Miller,
I haven't mentioned that. Let me just be very clear before you get going that $170 billion in this bill, big beautiful bill, goes to increased border funding, ICE, and then border protection, CPB. And one of the things that kills me about this bill is that people are upset with what's happening now. I don't want to. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Chris. I just wanted to be very clear that.
Yeah.
What happening now is bad, and they're going to hire 10,000 more ICE agents to do these bad things.
And never mind the fact, too, they're paying them six-figure salaries now, plus they're giving them, $45,000 signing bonuses to come to ICE, something like that.
Right. Meanwhile, our public school teachers are still buying things out of their own pockets for their classrooms.
Right. And what I personally can't get past and I don't know, maybe this is just me as the guy who looks at everything through an economic lens, is they're deporting the folks who are picking our crops, who are doing supplemental labor on construction projects, who are, in hurricane ravaged areas, rebuilding homes, like doing jobs that if you want that job, you can go get that fucking job right now. It has been open since Moses wore short pants. They will give it to you. You can fucking have it. He's not like the guy who was overstaying his visa, or the folks who maybe entered the country illegally. They're not here taking your postdoctoral fellowship at Johns Hopkins. Like, they're doing really important jobs in our economy, or really important jobs that prop up our economy. And then we look around like, well, why doesn't anybody want to work? Well, no, nobody's ever wanted this fucking job. Like, do you want to go work in a meat plant for, where it's 85 degrees and smells awful for 16 hours for $14 an hour? No, the fuck you don't, or you would already have that job. That's what drives me up the wall, is they're celebrating deporting people who are just genuinely here looking for a better life and have maybe overstayed a visa, or have maybe just gone around an unnecessarily complicated immigration system. Like, I don't get it. Like, what the fuck are you mad about? Are you mad at the criminals? Because great, let's get them out. But leave the guy who's just picking avocados in California for $15 an hour to support his family alone. The fuck did he do?
Well, to your point,
you think the avocado guy is getting $15 an hour?
No, it was the first figure that came
no,
up.
that's all right. Well, and to be very, very to put a cherry on top of that point, if you cross into our country illegally, that's a misdemeanor. It's a traffic, it's on par with a traffic violation.
Correct.
Yeah. And the people that are squawking and bleating about that these people are here illegally, so that they are not humans and should be just punted into some gulag in another country, voted for a guy that was convicted of 37 felonies. So I don't know. You might just be assholes when you're arguing that point. I know that I'm gonna die on some hill, probably of starvation. That I'm just gonna try to. I know I can't convince the Republicans that they're hypocrites, but it just boggles my mind that they don't see this shit.
Well, and to your point, when we talk about increasing this gigantic increase in funding, resulting in more of a police state, it's not like, I think folks don't really realize that a lot of the reason they have maybe not had a lot of encounter with anything ICE related, right, is just strictly resource based. They haven't had the money to do things like set up checkpoints all over. Now they do. And I've got news for you. Like, everybody's like, oh, well, they can't do anything. They can't do anything because they don't have X, Y, and Z credential. If you live within 100 miles of a border, ICE has basically unlimited power at that point. What?
Sorry about that. Accidentally hit a Duolingo notification.
And folks,
Chris
don't realize
Chris is not wrong. They literally have range power. Like, it's the distance from the border.
Right. Yeah, so I just looked it up while we were talking here, but within those zones, they can set up checkpoints and stop vehicles for literal detention and questioning, without reasonable suspicion.
Well, and let's not forget that Tom Holman, the marble mouth director of ICE right now, said that it's perfectly okay to stop and detain people based on their physical appearance.
Didn't the Supreme Court decide this with New York and stop and frisk?
They did.
Didn't they say that you can't do this?
Well, Adam would have to correct me.
We have a lawyer.
Adam would have to correct me.
I'm not putting him on the spot because clearly we didn't tell him we were going to talk about this, and obviously, like, he's not an immigration lawyer.
Not that kind of lawyer.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, they argued that the reason that was unconstitutional is because the cops were just to a 70-30, we're stopping black and brown people.
Yeah, I would have to read the case law here to really have an informed opinion on it. And to be honest, I did not in preparation for tonight's episode, so I'm not going to weigh in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
and
guys,
from the hip, tell us how much it depends.
It certainly depends.
Also, remember, guys, Adam will not read a decision unless he's paid to. So we just need to we'll just all give him $3 to read decisions we want him to read.
Yeah, so we need to start like a Patreon where all the funds just go to Adam doing some legal prep work before we hop on.
Yeah, our make sure Adam is prepared for the next episode fund.
Yeah. Just not spring
we just
shit
need
on
to
him.
figure out, he bills in 6-minute increments, so we just need to figure out how much each 6 minutes is worth.
Nice.
Fine.
My go-to is that when I ask my lawyer friends like a law question that I just want their like, hey, shoot from the hip here. And I've done it to Adam. Like I just send him $5, Venmo him, like buy yourself beer. There you go. So I work in beers. That's not 6-minute intervals.
So, but anyways, I know we really got off on that there, and it's just astonishing to me. Like I said, who looks at basically everything through an economic lens of how they want it both ways. Like they want to deport everyone who's here illegally, who's overstayed a visa or who's otherwise not a criminal whatsoever. But then they also don't want the financial impacts of having that happen. I just, but even more, I think you said it really well of like, this is just, it's a terrifying reality that we're going to create now. It's just a perpetual police state now. Like I thought, well, actually I'm not even remotely surprised now that I think about it, as I've started to say this out loud. I'm not even remotely surprised that the quote unquote party of law and order wants to do all of this when, they call themselves the party of law and order, and they're literally, they've spent the last 2 weeks protecting one of the worst human beings on earth and not releasing the Epstein Files.
Yeah, we will definitely get to that. I think Adam is going to be our lead on that guy. Not that he's a Epstein and Charles will want. I just want to say as we wrap this up that if everybody's upset with the way that ICE is behaving now, it's going to get a lot worse. And to what Chris was saying, we had an unwritten agreement with illegal immigrants. You would do the jobs we didn't want to and make our labor cheap and our economy hot. And we would just kind of look the other way as long as you weren't, an unbelievably aggressive criminal.
And I have news for you, they're not.
They're not. I mean, I will admit that I grew up thinking that. I swear I remember having this conversation with my dad. Like, I thought if you were a legal immigrant, you got popped for anything, you were just jettisoned out of the country. Roll through a stop sign, they pull you over. You don't have a driver's license, can't prove you. Boom, they're just like eject your seat out of the United States kind of thing. And
God, don't give Stephen Miller any fucking ideas.
Exactly. Well, and as I got older and became less of an idiot, per se, I learned that there's a system in place to handle this. Now, like you said, it's archaic and overly complicated, and it fucking sucks. But it's also fun to point out that we're putting, $57 billion into check where's the into like housing. $45 billion into detention capacity and virtually no money into immigration lawyers. So, what did you say
didn't
earlier?
We just fire a bunch of immigration judges?
Right, because we didn't need those guys. Those guys sucked. But what did you say earlier, Chris? Show me your budget and I'll show you your priorities. There you go.
Right. Nobody's priority is to actually fix the problem.
No.
If they actually wanted to fix the problem, if let's say that you are one of those folks that we were just talking about, right? Like you're just here working, you're just minding your own business, blah blah blah. No actual criminal history or anything like that. Like if they actually wanted to fix the problem, they would create a very quick pathway for that person to get actual documented legal status. They would fix this backlog. I swear to God, I think the way that they intend to fix the backlog in the immigration system is just to literally deport everyone and say start again.
Okay, explain to me like I'm 5. How does that work? How in the absolute shit does that?
Oh, they don't know how it works. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They don't know how it works. That's I think to an extent what they're trying to do is they're trying to create this system that looks so objectively horrible and so inhumane that folks are just self-deporting, because they've also got the self-deport program where they buy you a plane ticket and they'll give you like $1,000 or something like that.
Yeah. And there's stories that you're hearing about, like Dreamers. No, we haven't talked about Dreamers yet because that's an entirely different program that I think the Trump administration has already scrapped. But
they've tried multiple times, but I think the Supreme Court has saved it a few different times.
Right, but you have people that are here there, and they've been given this is completely anecdotal, and I can't remember where I read it, but I read a news article about a woman who was like, they had a party with her extended friends and family because she was going to go back to Mexico. She never lived there, but she was afraid of just getting snatched and just deported somewhere else.
Well, I just listened to a piece not long ago on NPR. About a dreamer who was scooped up and sent to Alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that shithole.
Yeah, well, it's fucking.
We only have so much time.
Yeah, that's fucking.
Yeah, I don't want to keep hammering this because it's just going to make me mad. Let's
go talk about a child predator.
Wait, I can make you happy. I have more great memories from Obama.
Great, yeah. I don't think I have enough whiskey in the house for that, Charles. Sorry.
I mean, like, I'm sorry. I'm in a told you so fucking mood right now. Yeah, remember when we had this whole discussion in the Democratic Party about like whether we wanted the executive to basically be king?
Yeah.
And a lot of people said that Barack Obama was going to change that, but he actually just took all of the things that George W. Bush did and made them policy.
Ran with it.
Yeah, how's that working out for you guys?
Right.
Working out great, right?
Did
Everyone's real happy.
Did you vote for Bush
Okay,
there?
so as a huge hypocrite myself, I think that if you're afraid of hypocrisy, you're just a coward, because hypocrisy is a weak fucking allegation in this day and age. Nobody cares about it. Nobody who agrees with you cares.
You're not wrong,
Dr. Johnson.
Yeah.
Nobody who agrees with you cares if you get accused of being a hypocrite.
No, hypocrisy is for people who aren't in power. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
Very true.
Right.
Very true.
Right. Hypocrisy is for people who aren't in power. But what I will say is that when the right has lost the Joe Rogans of the world and the Theo Vaughns of the world, and even those guys have spoken out, like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, why are we deporting the guy who's just here picking oranges, or the guy who's just here putting roofs on houses?
Yeah.
When they have
punted my
stepped
tamale
up,
guy.
right? Like when they have stepped up to be like, what the fuck is this? You're on the wrong side of it.
Yeah.
Because those are the guys that'll be like, well, what about to anything?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have Facebook friends that are now actively debating with me that our concentration camp, Alligator Alcatraz, is better than the other concentration camps. And I'm like, cool.
Like, we can't even agree that concentration camps are bad, period.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Like, just fucking ridiculous. Anyways.
All right, let's
talk conspiracy theories.
Yeah, Adam, talk to me about pedophiles.
Well,
God, what you word that
in a
differently.
continuation,
phrasing.
In a continuation of hypocrisy being a weak allegation, we have gone over the course of the Trump administration, the Trump administration's plural, from the Epstein client list. The alleged Epstein client list is the defining issue of our time, and when it is released, we will know the names of all of the elite cannibal pedophiles secretly running our government. To Trump wins his second term, and Pam Bondi has that list on her desk and is going to release it any day now, and she has allegedly released it, or parts of it, to some right-wing podcasters, to Then the Trump administration saying, actually, there is no list, to lately Donald Trump has said, there is a list, but it was fabricated by Barack Obama and Jim Comey and Hillary Clinton.
That's my favorite.
And to take a step back, Jeffrey Epstein is, for anybody who at this point doesn't know who he is a New York financier who ran
was let's say was
that's
an important caveat.
He was a New York financier
of the living
who ran private wealth management operations for an exclusive list of clientele. And then in the aftermath of Bill Clinton's presidency, when the Clinton Foundation was in the news a lot, and Bill was being a more active ex-president than was typical in this day and age, there were some news articles that, how is Bill Clinton getting around? And it seemed that he had gotten used to the luxury of flying around in Air Force One and didn't want to fly commercial these days, and was being transported on a plane owned by Mr. Epstein. And
you don't want to use the name of that plane? That doesn't make you feel weird?
I don't actually know what the name of that plane was.
Oh, really? It was called the Lolita Express?
Yeah, that's what it was referred to.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that will get us into later on. Mr. Epstein was revealed to have been prolific in his involvement with underage girls. And
you can just say that he was a child rapist.
Yeah.
This episode's already getting demonetized from the 3 cents of ad revenue it might generate.
When did we monetize shit?
And that in that era, back when Donald Trump was not a political figure, he was quoted in certain articles that weren't really about Jeffrey Epstein or about Donald Trump. They were about figuring out who is this guy who is flying Bill Clinton around all over the place. But Donald Trump was quoted in these articles because he was notably friends with Jeffrey Epstein in this period, as saying some actually kind of creepy things about how he thought it was amusing that Jeffrey Epstein hung around with all these very young women. And he didn't say underage, but these very young women. Jeffrey Epstein eventually got a kind of sweetheart plea deal.
I can read the quote for you if you'd like me to.
What?
I can read the quote for you if you'd like me to.
Shoot.
So this is Donald Trump in, I believe it was New York Magazine. I've known Jeffrey for 15 years. Terrific guy, Trump told New York Magazine that year for a story headline. Jeffrey Epstein, international money man of mystery. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them on the young side.
So this is a little bit, I would say, immune from allegations that this is some kind of anti-Trump fake news thing, because this is from back before Trump was a political figure at all.
Right.
This is him just firing off the cuff about this guy that he's friends with and being like, haha, this guy likes really young women. Well, it turns out some of those young women were underage. And Jeffrey Epstein got what was at the time perceived as kind of a sweetheart plea deal.
I feel like you can't even say sort of a sweetheart plea deal. Like, the guy got 16 months in prison and got work release for running an international pedophile ring.
Now,
and they also did a total end run around the victims.
I will say I don't know what he was actually convicted of, because just because you are notoriously known as being like a guy who hangs out with underage women, that doesn't necessarily translate to you got convicted of raping a bunch of women. Like, I don't know what he actually got convicted of.
Yeah, I think it's also too that without the Epstein files, we don't know what they had the evidence to convict him of either.
Right. So fast forward, Epstein ends up getting a new round of prosecutions about during the first Trump administration. He gets convicted again, and then he at least by the official report, commits suicide in jail in New York. This spawns a whole spate of conspiracy theories about, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, and a bunch of theories about who allegedly killed him. Well, this spins off into this movement that we need to get Donald Trump back in the White House because his people are going to reveal who killed Jeffrey Epstein and who was Jeffrey Epstein also trafficking underage girls to. Mm-hmm. Now, it's important to note it has not been proven that Jeffrey Epstein was trafficking underage girls to anybody other than himself. That is a speculation.
Prince Andrew.
It may be true. You may believe it to be true. It may seem likely. It has not been proven in a court of law.
Man, how sweaty are Prince Andrew's hands?
Not very sweaty anymore because now he's coming to the United States soon. But so I think it's important to point out that I think you brought up a good point that it's spun off into this whole movement of like, if you ever want to find out what happened with Jeffrey Epstein and blah, 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 you need to elect Donald Trump. But that wasn't like a tangent movement that spurred up, right? Like that was his campaign. That was his campaign saying that shit. Like it wasn't like, oh, just this right-wing podcaster said it. So no, Donald Trump himself said that. Like, Christ, his son. What's that famous tweet from his son now that's like, every day the Epstein Files aren't released, we're protecting pedophiles or something like that. Like, so there's two situations that like there's two possible scenarios here as to why this has been fucked up as bad as it's been fucked up. First, you've got the possibility that there's just nothing there, right? Like that what they're saying is in fact the truth. What the previous administration said is in fact the truth. And they don't want to admit to their base of, hey, we lied to you, sorry. Or the longer they sit quiet about this, the more these conspiracy theories stir up of, well, Donald Trump's just protecting himself and his rich buddies.
Yeah.
So there are three.
Also,
go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt, but this also this all came from something that we kind of let to the wayside, which is QAnon. QAnon several years ago started up because some asshat on Reddit, not Reddit, I'm sorry, 4chan, said that he was posting
with Q level. Don't you besmirch the good name of Reddit.
I know, thank you, sorry. Posted that he, was some deep in their covert operative with Q level clearance, and kept posting about a global pedophile network that was running the world. And this just caught fire everywhere. And of course, when Epstein was arrested, that entire movement latched on to this conspiracy. And to Chris's point, like this was not just some like fringe movement. Like it was a fringe movement, but because they're all cranks, but they were coming to Trump rallies and Trump knew about this. He was asked about QAnon and how much they liked him. He's like, well, I guess they're okay because they like me. And like he was at rallies and people were holding up babies with like, QAnon logos on their onesies. And he was like, that's a great baby. So like they cultivated this shit, and they cultivated these voters. And it was it was part of their campaign rhetoric that when they got in, they were going to release the Epstein Files. And I think the thing that people don't want to like, the things that Trump doesn't want to talk about right now is the fact that he got into office being the outsider that was going to tell you that what was really going on. These elite fucks were lying to you the whole time, like you were saying, Chris. And like that was his whole persona. And he got in, and now he's like, yeah, nothing to see here. Actually, we should burn it all. It's really bad for everybody. I think maybe, I don't know. I haven't seen, he's just completely doing a 180 on these people. And, and some of them are upset, and some of them are just, as Adam will probably go further, like are going to roll with it. But this was his core campaign stance.
I just don't know how you continue to roll with it. Like even your own base has bashed you for this one.
Well, I mean, like influencers and other media heads are going to just they're deciding right now where they're going to roll with it.
So counterpoint.
There's really two different tacks that this could take at this point. one of the, or if you're the Trump administration, because we genuinely believed that this list existed, and then we got into office and found out it didn't. Line like isn't really available to you anymore. Because Trump's like everybody seems to forget this, but Donald Trump has been president before, and in fact, he was president when Jeffrey Epstein died in custody.
Right.
He has been in charge of the Justice Department before, at a time when these files, if they exist, would have been in the possession of the Justice Department. He had the power to release them from 2017 to 2021. So what we are left with here is two options. And the first one is that the Trump camp used this conspiracy theory and rode this tiger back into power to try and get the support from the people to whom this issue was important. And that's not a great look for them. No, and they used that knowing that there was nothing there. And that's not a great look for them.
Yeah.
What is a worse look for them is that they rode this tiger into power, and then the supporters who saw this as important called their bluff on it and said, you need to follow through and do this. And Donald Trump, or some people who are close to him in this movement, are mentioned in this list, and he and his are scrambling to say, oh, no, don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Don't look at any of this. We're moving on, which is an even worse look.
Well, that's normally what they try and do, is just muscle through it and get on to the next crisis.
I don't see an outcome here that's good for them.
It's pretty clear that he's in the files.
Well, if he wasn't, he wouldn't have asked the DOJ to flag any reference to him in the files.
Yeah, that's why it's pretty clear that he's in the files. And then of course,
and I want to be clear before I get sued for $10 billion the way that he is with Rupert Murdoch. You and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong. You could be mentioned in the files and not actually even be considered a suspect or involved whatsoever.
Right.
Your name just comes up.
I mean, like for instance, I'm 100% sure that Bill Clinton's name is in that file. That doesn't mean that he participated in any illegal action toward an underage girl. Right. He might have just flown on Jeffrey Epstein's plane because Jeffrey Epstein was a rich guy who made a lot of political donations.
But let's talk about what the Wall Street Journal reported, because
that's okay. Yeah, that's well. Just to be clear, Donald Trump is listed in the flight logs for the Lolita Express 7 times, and Bill Clinton. I don't have that number in front of me. And I have a very loud keyboard. Sorry, everybody.
You do. It's like you got a typewriter going.
I swear, I have priced a very nice mechanical keyboard that I saw that I used at a Beamline. It's not coming up quickly for me, guys. But no, Bill Clinton's clearly on those flight logs too. It's like Adam said, it's because he was going from point A to point B, but also a lot of reporting is very specific that there is no evidence that Donald Trump or Bill Clinton ever went to the island or were involved in, they were just on the plane. That's to like Chris said, to stave off a $10 billion lawsuit.
Right.
Yeah. So that lawsuit with the Wall Street Journal, that's going to be interesting, because if they forged the document at the Wall Street Journal, which I think is an outcome that is much, much less likely than the other one, which is that they somehow gained access to this and it's in the file.
Yeah, I would. It would be incredibly surprising to me if it turns out that the Wall Street Journal fabricated this document.
Right. Let's back up.
But
guys, I think we're jumping ahead of information we have that people might not have listening. So the Wall Street Journal, what we're talking about is the Wall Street Journal published an article last night before last.
It was a few days ago.
Yeah. Times Flat Circle, in which they reported that for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday, his conciliary, his friend, whatever she is, Maxine,
Ghislaine
Maxwell.
Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm sorry.
Procure. The word
procure. There. she got together a bunch of letters and notes and like things for his 50th birthday that was then combined into a leather-bound book that was given to him. And the Washington Journal alleges that one of the letters was from Donald Trump, and it was a sketch of a naked woman where Donald Trump had used his signature to represent her pubic hair, and inside, I'm trying to come up with the text if somebody has it before me.
It was basically just really creepy about. It was just really creepy wording about pleasures that money can't buy or some shit like that.
Yeah, it was a conversation. It was a conversation. It was a third person conversation between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, where he was like, they talked about, why can I not find this shit right now? He talked about how like, hey, you know, it's great to have a pal. You haven't aged, you know, and you know, all this weird talk. The point is that it ended with like, you know, happy birthday. Hope every day is another great, you know, glorious secret or special secret. It was just it read as such inside like communication with two guys that knew they were doing something illegal and were trying to code it in the stupidest
like when serial
way.
killers used to write letters to each other via via the classifieds and shit.
Yeah.
So, real quick before we get too far, I want to talk real quick about the quote unquote likelihood of them just being able to muscle through this one, and I want to show. Give me 1 second. I want to here.
Well, while you're looking for that, I think Adam's point is correct. It's like there's no way the Washington Journal went to post with this without being iron fucking clad. Now,
right.
The fact that they didn't include the sketch and little poem. So the little poem was apparently typewritten. Donald Trump signed his signature then to at the woman's genitals, you know, to represent her pubic hair, and everybody's like, well, it doesn't sound like Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's a man who doesn't have email. He doesn't do things for him fucking self. So there's no way that I can't see that this was just handed off. Like I can completely see that Maxwell came to him with this like stupid, you know, poem. Third person conversation and was like, hey, just draw a naked lady around this. He'll love it. And Trump just going, all right, here you go.
I think it's escaping a lot of people's notice that Donald Trump was a lot more articulate 30 years ago than he is.
Oh, yeah. We're talking, was it 22? This was 22 years ago this happened, I think.
So, real quick so that I can stop sharing my screen here. This is Google Trends for everyone who's not seen it. It's basically the aggregate of people who are searching for this. This right here is why this is not going away. Is just the sheer search volume has never been higher over the last year, and people are paying attention to it. So they might not have been paying attention to the economic impact of the big bullshit bill, or they might not be even paying attention to all of the nonsense that's happening with you know this mass deportation plan. But they are fucking paying attention to this. And this is why this is not going away. Is because this is the red meat of that base. What you see here is that this is a percentage in interest over time, right? And you can see that in the last month it has reached the highest that it has been at any point over the last 12 months. It's not going to go away. This isn't going to go away if for no other reason then like if you're just remotely interested in politics, you still know about this. And now you're like, well, shit, what is going on with that? Because they keep just trying to muscle past it. And what happens is that feeds these conspiracy theories.
Well, and another reason it feeds, the conspiracy theories is that their denials of this are so horseshit. Now,
right.
I will admit I do not know everything there is to know about Donald Trump. I started paying attention to him, of course. Like I grew up, I was born in 1980, so in my head he's always been like a billionaire just back here, and then like all the bankruptcies were like, okay, that was news over here. I didn't pay attention until it came down that golden escalator. There are facts about him I don't know, and I'm fine with not knowing them. But in his defense on True Social, he said, I have never written a picture. His fucking words. I'm not going to try to clean that up. but he talks about how he's not a doodler. His son has come out, Don Jr. has come out on True Social and said that my dad is never a doodler.
Wait, didn't he just auction off artwork he did? Like drawings he did?
So
yeah.
I did not know this. But apparently over the years, Donald Trump has done cityscapes, which of course he does cityscapes, right? And they're all done in a heavily sharpied. Oh, let's go back up here. Sorry, everybody. I thought it was a better picture. Maybe no, I can't make it blow up. But yeah, they're all cityscapes. They're all done in a heavy Sharpie, and then they're as art goes, they're not bad, But okay, so he draws and he auctioned these off for charity and shit like that. That's fine. Hey, good on him. I hope he raised $100,000 for cancer research or something like that. Great, but then don't tell me that you've never drawn a picture in your life.
Right.
Somebody just dropped something in the kitchen.
It happens.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, and also, what the fuck does I've never written a picture mean? That's just. But yeah, I mean, under over. What do we think? Do we think we ever actually get Epstein information? I know they asked to have the indictment unsealed, but also isn't Ghislaine Maxwell appealing to have her conviction overturned because the sweetheart deal that Epstein got back in 2006 or whatever it was said there would be no prosecution for unnamed co-conspirators either. So isn't she going to take the stand and get to talk?
I was under the impression she wanted to, but the Republican
she offered to testify to Congress.
Yeah.
She did offer to testify to Congress, but in general, she has her own long outstanding appeal that is supposedly headed to the Supreme Court. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what to think about it. I find myself reading more conspiracy theory than I'm comfortable reading. I've long been one of those people that's if it doesn't smell right, it's not right. So this don't pass the sniff test. Something here is not right. I don't know what the something is, but something ain't right.
Well, I guess my question for Adam would be, Donald Trump now wants the DOJ to release the transcripts of what is it called? Damn it!
The indictment.
The indictment, but the grand jury testimony and things like that. I was under the impression that that's not something the executive office can command the DOJ to do.
So I don't know in the federal context, but grand jury proceedings are ordinarily confidential.
Well, yeah. They can ask that, like you said, he doesn't have the authority to command it to happen. But I think what he did is he ordered Pam Bondi to basically to ask the judge, petition the judge. That was the word I was looking for. To petition a federal judge to have it released.
Hey, at least he didn't do the Kathleen Kane thing and just leak the thing.
Listen.
Yeah. Again, not that kind of lawyer. I haven't thought about criminal law since the bar exam, but ordinarily grand jury proceedings are confidential, and it is highly unusual for them to be made public.
That's why Kathleen Kane's career capped out as Pennsylvania Attorney General.
Yeah. Well, Adam, if you want to wrap this up for us, I think Chris and I are on the same page. This is just wild and not going away.
Yeah, I just don't. From a political standpoint, I don't see where it goes away. I don't see how.
This is one of the few things that I have actually seen actually fracture the MAGA base. There are folks who were committed MAGA people who are actually mad at the Trump administration about this.
Nick Fuentes.
Yeah. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah, that piece of shit's even mad about it.
Yeah.
And that surprised me. Because what that shows is that there are some factions of what used to be, or maybe still is to an extent, but to a weaker extent, the MAGA coalition, who were not using this cynically to put Donald Trump in power. They actually believe this. They actually care about this. And if Donald Trump continues on what is his likely path here, because I just don't see him reversing course, he is going to alienate part of his base, which is something that he hasn't been able to do prior to now because of the uncharacteristic coherence of that coalition.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be some of them that are going to like the Charlie Kirks of the world. I think are going to come back to heel, but like
well, there's some that already have.
Yeah. But like Woods, you would know this because you live on the deep dark corners of the internet with Alex Jones. He seems like he's just like Alex Jones seems like he's heartbroken.
Yeah, this might not surprise you, but Alex Jones's response to this is absolutely incoherent. He really is he waffled for like several days on like, this isn't Trump. Okay, now Trump's part of the conspiracy. Okay, he's just listening to bad advisors. Now, okay,
Bizarre always has bad advisors.
Yeah, there you go. And like he hasn't gone down the road of like with like the hardcore QAnon bullshit. Like just to Alex Jones tried to like co-op QAnon back in the day, and they hate his ass. So like he tried to like do that, and it just blew up in his face. But he hasn't gone down the road of like, hey, Trump is doing this. Trump hung out with a pedophile to make sure he could be there to catch the pedophile. He hasn't gone that far yet.
Wait, do we think that they would believe that?
I don't think they would, but he's hovering around the idea that, listen, guys, I will totally politically stab Trump in the back if I have to, if I find out he's done something with underage girls. But right now, you just have to look at all the great stuff he's done with deporting immigrants and firing. He just checks off all the bullshit that he thinks Trump's done well and says, he basically is saying, we can look over a little bit of pedophilia if we're gonna get Medicare cuts. Like that's what he's saying now. Like he's hovering on that position, which is fun to watch.
It's something, all right.
It's I don't know. Yeah, he's a piece of shit.
Well, on that cheery note, I hope you all have a good night. We will be back next week to see whether the Republic has fallen apart. For Woods, Charles, and Chris, I'm Adam. Go touch some fucking grass, people.
Well, good fucking luck, America.